Welcome to my channel, Data Driven Decisions. And today I'm going to talk about my top 10 rules for credit cards. I'm a big fan of credit cards. I think they definitely have its purpose in everybody's personal finance ecosystem. They're a tool, and they 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 can rip you apart if you're not responsible with your credit cards and you don't pay off your balances in time and you have to pay interest. It's always really high interest, something like 20%. So it's kind of like fishing for the credit card company. If you're a good customer where you never pay interest on your credit cards, they label you as a deadbeat because they don't make any money off you. They keep trying, but if you're responsible, if you always know when your balances are due, and to avoid all interest, then you can use credit cards for the tool they are. They usually give you a free year of interest free with a new card, and that's always great to take advantage of and to float money. That's what I've been doing lately. But let's get started with the top 10 rules for credit cards. Number one is to pay off the statement balance of every card every month. So drawing on the lines of just to never pay interest on a single credit card. I've never paid interest on a credit card in my life. Um, you know, Pay off the statement balance, not the full balance, but every month the credit card produces a statement, and that's always from last month's spending in total, and that's usually what you are due the following month. So you just pay the statement balance. You don't have to pay the full balance. You just pay off what was spent last month. So with every credit card, you get a free month of interest-free spending. You spend it one month and you have to pay for it the following month. Um, so that's rule number one, and you want to automate that. You can put it on auto pay every credit card. So for every card that is old and you've had for a while and doesn't have any 0% APR, you want to pay the statement balance in full every month, right at the due date. Every credit card I have 14, gives me that option to do that auto pay. So always just pay the statement balance in full on the due date, and that's always one of those. If you go through the app, it's just that's what most people do. So that's what you should do. Number two is to pay the minimum balance of every new card with a 0% APR rate. So for instance, I got a Bank of America card right now that has a $24,000 credit limit, and it's got an 18-month 0% APR rate. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put about 8 or 9 grand on that card and float that money to the very end, all the way to 2026, and then a month before that 0% APR rate is up, I pay the whole thing off in full. And you got to have the money to do that. You got to plan for that. You got to grow your checking to make sure that you have the funds to pay that, and you need to at all costs pay that, because if you don't pay that on time, the interest goes all the way back to the very beginning of the transaction. So for instance, if I failed to pay this 9,000 that I intend to spend on this new credit card, if I'm off by one day, that interest will end up being like 2-3 grand, because it goes all the way back for a year. So that's their form of phishing. They're trying to get you at that. So for me, I'm conservative. I will pay off that credit card maybe a month before I think it's due, not to come close to um, reaching the deadline. Make sure you pay it off and do whatever it takes to pay it off. If you don't have the money, the savings, or the checking account, then cash in some 401k to pay it off. That will be well worth it, because you don't want to ever pay interest on a credit card. It's always very high. So do whatever it takes not to. Number three, you spend on the credit card that gives the highest cash back for the spend category. A lot of these credit cards, I always go for the ones with cash back. There's also travel credit cards. I don't use any of those because I don't like to travel. But I have 14 credit cards, and a lot of them are cash back. And based on where I'm spending the money and or what category, if it's a grocery store, I'm going to be using the American Express or the City Custom Cash. For every gas station, I'm using the American Express. Um, and then, for restaurants, I think I'm going to be using my Discover. For everything Amazon, I use the Chase Amazon card. And then for like everything else, I use either the 2% or 1.5% everywhere cards. I have a few of those, the Wells Fargo Active Cash, the Wells Fargo Cash Wise. Um, there's a couple cards that are just holistically, 1.5 or 2% across the board. But, I try to just take, as far as spending, it's all based on what's going to give me the highest cash back. So last year I made about 2 grand in credit card cash back rewards, and I think that's great. Uh, it's all a matter of using your credit card for the cash back. So I kind of produced a table in my Excel finance workbook, just showing a grid for all the categories of spend, and then what the cash back is for every single card, so that I can just formulate a plan of, okay, so at groceries I spend this and this, and then for gas I use this card, for bills I use this card. It all makes sense, so that I just take advantage of all the rewards. Number 4, I kind of mentioned it, automate all your credit card payments. So you know um, just make sure everything's on auto pay. For everything that's old, make sure it's the statement balance is paid in full on the due date. That's your auto pay. For the new cards, you just do the minimum balance on the due date. So at the end of the day, you're avoiding interest across the board, but you're taking advantage of the phishing that the credit card company is playing, where they're giving you free dollar years of debt, and they don't want you to pay it back. They want you to get lazy. But if you're responsible like me, you always make sure you pay it off, and you never pay interest on a credit card. I've never paid interest in my 12 years of using credit cards. Number 5, it's more related to checking accounts, but have a main checking account where all the income goes into it, and then all the bills come out of it. And then you manage the cash flow of that checking account. I have a tool that shows everything, all the money that's going to go out and go into my main checking account. And it's a game I got to play. I got to make sure that I don't run out of money from that account. So I got to plan a month or two in the future. This summer I'm paying for a roof, and it's, I received about a $7,000 check from my insurance company, and then I got to pay about 5 grand out of pocket. So, with that big expenditure, I needed to get new credit cards to take advantage of 0% APR, you know, and to grow my checking account so that I have the cash to do that. So yeah, just have a main checking account. Mine is Bank of America. Um, I have to keep a $1,500 limit on my checking account and 500 on my savings account in order to avoid a fee. I just make sure I do that. That's always, I treat that as the minimum of what I can have in that account. So I never want to go lower, or else I'll get nipped by fees, which I hate. Always avoid credit card interest rates, and always avoid bank fees. Those are the two killers. On Ramit Sethi's show, How to Get Rich, I mean, most of those people, he was looking at their checking account, and he was in their credit cards and seeing the fees, and they're like, oh God, and that just shows that this person is very irresponsible with money, not understanding money, and not managing it well. If you're continually paying big fees on credit cards and at your bank, um, you're not doing it right. You shouldn't be paying any of those fees. You got to avoid all that. Number 6, if you make a transaction with a shady business, or just something that you never want to do business with again, you don't want them to, if you give somebody your credit card, if you give somebody your credit card information, they have it. And, I guess if they wanted to, they could charge you again. You never know what you're signing these days. I mean, who reads all the fine print of what you sign? There are a lot of shady companies out there, and if I ever feel at risk of like, oh God, I really hope this company doesn't just take money out of my account and give me a random charge that I signed into. You can always just mark the card as lost or stolen, get a new one, and start over. So now that card that they have on file is useless to them. So, some things I've, bought, they don't let you really get away from it. They don't let you cancel. There's some shady businesses out there. So, if they're not going to get their money, they're not going to give you any service. So, just get a new card. If figure out where you made the transaction, what card, and get that. Just get a new card, and I do that all the time. I get new cards every month. I'm very conservative. If I just like, oh, I didn't like that purchase. All right, I'm gonna get a new card. And then you just got to be careful of recurring. What's recurring on a card. I have about 3 or 4 cards that I will do new business on, the shady business, and those are the ones I'll just get new ones all the time. Uh, you know, just that's awesome about credit cards. It's a pain in the ass with debit cards to do that. If there's fraud, it's hard to get it waived. But with credit cards, be proactive, get new cards all the time, anytime you are at risk, and um, yeah. Number 7, get a new credit card every year and take advantage of the 0% APR. That's kind of the game I've been doing. I get a new card or two every summer, and it always comes with a 0% APR, and I will spend up to 30% of that credit card's uh, credit limit to keep my utilization under 30%. But I always want to take advantage of those free years. I've been doing this for like 7 years, and I've never, gotten in trouble with it. I will do whatever it takes not to get in trouble with credit cards. I will cash in 401k money to do it. I have plenty of that. And if push comes to shove, I'll do it. I know I don't want to do it. I'll try to do whatever I can to not do that, but I'm never going to pay interest on credit cards. So I'll do whatever it takes to not. So, get a new card every year, take advantage of those 0% APR, but always keep it under 30%. Number 8, back to 30%, be under 30% utilization for every card. So, your utilization is probably the biggest factor for your credit score. I mean, given that you don't have any derogatory marks and you make all your payments, those you should be given. If you don't do that, then your credit score is low. Those are high impact, but the one that I would say that is also high impact but is variable is your utilization. I didn't know about this game until very recently, but I guess I've kind of learned that for every single card you want to have under 30% utilization. It's not holistically. It's not, if you look at your credit score, they tell you your overall utilization. Mine's very low, but you want to be under 30% for every single card. So, for new cards, I once would take the cards all the way up to its limit and be at like 100% utilization of the card, and that would totally knock my credit score down. This time around, I'm just going to keep everything under 30%, and that will probably keep my credit score at what it is, which is high 700s. So always be under 30% utilization for every card. And that's a big reason why to have more and more cards. Um, you know, with more cards, you got more credit limit, and you're not spending so much on each card. You're keeping your utilizations very, very low. If you got just 1 or 2 cards, then you're probably spending a lot on it, and even just within a month, your utilization is high on that card, and that's dinging your credit score. But if you had many cards and you were spreading out your transactions, your utilization is low across the board, and your credit score is low. And at this time, right now, I think my credit score is very important. I really want to maintain it because interest rates seem to be going on the decline. So we're in the season of refinancing. Because interest rates are lowering, you want to refinance. I just did that with my truck and with my house, and I got much better rates, and I'm really happy. I'm paying so much less in interest every month. And if it keeps going down and down and down, I mean, 4 years ago, interest rates were at like 2-3%, and God, I would love to have that for my mortgage and my truck, at least my mortgage. So if it does lower, I want to make sure I'm ready for that. So this year, I'm going to maintain my credit score, and the way I'm going to maintain that credit score is by no more hard inquiries. No more hard inquiries. That's another ding. No new accounts. So my credit age will only increase a month every month because I'm not getting new accounts. But my credit card usage is always going to be well under 30%, under 30% for every card. And if I just, maintain those variables, I know my credit score will stay where it is or not just get higher. It should just get a little bit higher every single month. And I should be at 800 pretty soon. Number 9, treat credit cards as cash. You know, the the big study says that like if you use credit cards, you spend at least 10% more than you would if it was cash. And you want to avoid that. I think that is true. Your credit card is desensitized. It doesn't feel like real money, so you're willing to spend on it more than you would if it was just cash or not. But you just got to think in your head, this is cash. You're going to have to pay it back one day. And Um, so so treat it like cash. It's just the same value as cash. Don't spend more just because it's a credit card. Be responsible. So treat your credit cards as cash. Um, and then number 10, lastly, always have a plan for paying off these high balance 0% APRs on time, at least a month in advance. Don't come close to that due date, because if you miss it by a day, it's a lot of money that you're gonna have to pay. It's gonna be thousands, like for me, if I were to do that on my cards. So have a plan, you know when that due date is up, and in the 3 or 4 months moving up to it, make sure you're going to be aggressively paying that off. You don't want to uh, miss that date, and you will lose big time, and the credit card company will win. They're fishing with you. They're hoping you fall on bad times and you can't pay that money that you spent a year ago that you were given free interest on. The day it's due, if you miss it, they go all the way back to when the transaction happened, and you pay interest on all those days. So it's gonna, if it's like 10,000, you're gonna end up paying 2,000 in interest fees. So always have a plan to pay off those 0% APRs on time. And if push comes to shove, you should cash out your retirement to pay that off. I know that's a bad philosophy, but you don't want to pay the interest rates. Never pay interest rates on credit cards. Do whatever it takes. So that's that. Those are my 10 rules for credit cards. I'm a big fan of credit cards. I have 14. I use them for everything I can. There's a lot of people that say don't use credit cards, but if you're responsible, if you know to never pay interest on credit cards, then you can use them as a tool of what they are, and they'll be good for you. So hope you like this. Have a good one.